and welcome to In the Loop. I'm Shane Finster, and we are joined today by Beau Evans with the Governor's Highway Safety Program.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you. So, for those who aren't familiar with it, what is it that you do with the Highway Safety Program?
Well, anything to deal with law enforcement initiatives, public education for how to drive on the roadways, tips for safe driving, car seat inspections and car seat safety and car seat installations, and pretty much anything to deal with highway safety that you can think of, we pretty much cover.
Great. So we have an ambitious agenda here this morning with stoplights and stop signs and then school bus safety. So let's lead off with the topic of stoplights and stop signs. We all should know as licensed drivers what those things are, but let's talk about some of the details and specifics.
Well, there's always the notion of what does the red mean, what does yellow mean, and what does green mean? Well, red means stop, green means go. Now comes the part where folks think that, oh, well, yellow means floor it.
Speed up.
Or yellow means it's about ready to change, let's floor it. Okay, yellow means that caution, the light is changing. If you're at the line or in the middle of the intersection, you're safe. If you're behind that line, then you need to either prepare to stop or you need to safely pass through the intersection. Unfortunately, if you're right at the line and the light turns, you don't slam on your brakes because the person behind you is most likely going to rear end you. So that would cause a major accident. You don't want that to happen. If you can safely get through there in that allotted time before it turns red, then you're okay. But once it turns red, you need to be behind that line. You don't need to go anywhere else. And that kind of raises a sticky situation because sometimes folks will say, well, no, it was green when I went through, or no, it was still yellow when I went through. Lights change very quickly, but they do give you that period. That yellow period is a transition period, and that should give you plenty of time to make a reaction to slow down and stop. Mm-hmm. Now, what happens if you go through it when it's on red? Well, hopefully the other folks coming the other direction have seen you not stopping, and they're going to not go. But as soon as it turns red on your side, it automatically turns green for the other direction of traffic. So there is no yellow time in between those directions of traffic. It turns right over, and folks have to be aware that not everybody either has the ability to stop, or everybody doesn't have their eyes on the roadway and they do stop. So in that case, it may be safe for you as a driver or a pedestrian to make sure that when the light changes, you give a little bit of time before you go, just to make sure that the intersection is clear.
I tend to wait about 2 to 3 seconds. I kind of have what I call the 3-second rule, where I will kind of like crossing the intersection as a pedestrian. I look both ways at least twice before I proceed into an intersection, especially if the crossing highway, the speed limit is a fairly high rate of speed, mm-hmm. like out of town, for example. Mm-hmm. Route 60 in Huntington is a good example. So with stoplights, staying with that topic, I know in a lot of jurisdictions and areas there are sensors that if there are emergency vehicles passing, I believe it can trigger the light to change for that vehicle. Can we talk about that just for a second? Because you see these strange things mounted up near the stoplights that I think confuse people. There are cameras and white-looking sensor boxes and things. Mm-hmm. Can we talk about those for a second?
Yeah. Cameras don't exist on those traffic poles. Everybody thinks that when they get into a crash that they can just pull up the cameras. Those aren't cameras. Those are actually sensors that detect that there's a car at the stoplight. You also have sensors in the roadway that are built into the roadway. So you have a sensor on the roadway, and you also have a sensor up on top. that can see that there's a vehicle there to signal that, hey, we've allowed traffic over through here so many times, and now it's time to let this group go. Now, when it comes to maybe like 3 o'clock in the morning, that it becomes a useful tool. When it's in the middle of the day, a lot of traffic out and about, the timing on the red lights and the traffic signals will be automized with the daily traffic. So those are timed specifically for the traffic, allowing so much this way, so much this way, and the same amount for both directions. But when you get into the middle of the night, it's 3 o'clock in the morning, you have maybe it's set to stay green for the main thoroughfare through the town or wherever you're at, township. But then the other direction, it's set red. Well, if a car pulls up to it, if it's set to stay green the rest of the night that way, that car would be sitting there all night long at the red light. So that sensor on top or in the pavement actually will signal that, oh, there's a car there, so we need to switch. So, and then it'll let the car go. That's mainly those. But there are municipalities and states where cameras do exist, and where automated traffic enforcement has become, something of a daily thing. I believe Michigan has got that. Quite a few other states, larger states that have large municipalities, typically have automated traffic enforcement where it frees up more policemen to go and work other things where other crimes have occurred or where other things are needed. But I know that for a fact in the state of West Virginia that it's against legislature to allow cameras to be posted for automatic traffic enforcement. But some states, they have legislature that allows them to do that, and municipalities can either take it upon themselves to do it, or the state may do it for them.
Wow.
But then comes the question, okay, how does the system work? Who monitors it? And that is a whole other ballpark of questions and answers, and something that is sort of a hot topic, because folks think, well, was it me that went through there? Well, it was your car, or were you driving it? Well, no, my son was driving it. Well, okay, but it's your car, it's your responsibility. Or no, it's your son's responsibility now.
So who's the ticketed driver?
Is it the
vehicle
driver?
or the driver that gets the ticket?
And it depends on what the state or the municipality or the township, whatever their legislature, whatever their ordinance, whatever they have on the books says, how it's deemed. But there have been cases that where folks will contest a lot of that, because it's, there hasn't been an actual officer that's witnessed it. Nobody's watching it. So in that case, you could debate that probably all day long.
So that raises the argument of, if you are really saving resources, if those folks are then in courts battling out who was at fault, or if someone was at fault or not. So yeah, I can understand that.
But and in the case of a traffic accident, that would actually come in handy to have a camera in that case, because then you could see who ran the red light, or who ran the green, who was coming through green and who was coming through red, to actually get the actual eyes on the scene there. But those typically are not cameras. Now you mentioned the emergency system to go through. Most of the emergency systems operate for ambulances and fire trucks. So if you see an ambulance coming by or coming up behind you, typically you will see an all red, or your side will turn green and the other side will turn red pretty quickly. And there's usually a big white bulb that comes on, and it just stays on as they come through the light, and then it'll go off after they've passed by. So what that does is that it initiates an all stop for all directions and allows the ambulance or fire truck to get to the scene faster, but also, when they're coming down through there, they're also looking both directions to make sure it's clear, because not every intersection has one of those that works. Maybe some municipalities have a lot of them. I know that some like downtowns of municipalities and townships tend to have them, but out on the country roads, not really. If you get to an intersection, maybe along Route 60, or if you get on something on 52 or 51 or 35, those areas, there may be one on there, but they aren't mandated for every, and not every ambulance or fire truck have the capability to turn those on and turn those off.
I see.
Depends on if the system is actually in the vehicle or not.
So let's roll to stop sign safety. 3-way stops, 4-way stops, 1-way stops. It can be a big problem when it comes to understanding right of way and who has it next, in my opinion at least. So let's talk about that for just a couple minutes here. Stop sign safety. How should it work?
Well, the main goal of stop signs are you need to stop. That's the first rule of thumb is stop. It doesn't say slow down. It doesn't say coast through. It doesn't, it's kind of like that yellow on the traffic signals. It's, do we slow down a little bit and speed right back up again, or, with the yellow, you floor it, or, what do you do? You need to stop. A 3-way stop, it's whoever gets there first, and they are allowed to go next. A 4-way stop works the same, and a 2-way stop or 1-way stop, how many stops you have, it's typically who will get there first has the right of way to go. Now, sometimes when you get to a stop sign or a traffic signal and you are getting ready to turn right on red, you'll need to look and see if you have a right on red sign that allows you to go right on red, or if it prohibits you, or sometimes it may prohibit you during certain hours of the day, like peak drive times, morning drive time or afternoon drive time,
Right.
going to and from work or school. So in those cases, you may want to, be aware of when you can turn right on red. But in any case, when you turn right on red, you still have to stop. So at a right on red on a stop sign, you still have to stop. You can't just say, oh yeah, it looks pretty good, and then I'm going to go. So, if you're down in town, I know Huntington, we have a lot of stop signs in Huntington. If you go to Ashland, there's a lot of traffic lights and stop signs down there. Same thing over here into Ohio. When you go to down through Chesapeake, there's stop signs down through there. There's stoplights. One key thing that's available in Kentucky and Ohio, but not in West Virginia, is the flashers that tell you that the light's going to change. Those present in Kentucky and Ohio, not in West Virginia. Those do not exist in West Virginia unless you're at maybe a factory entrance and exit near a coal plant or near a steel plant or something like that. Then they may flash warning you, but 9 times out of 10 you're not going to have that in West Virginia. But those help keep you
notify
you that
hey, you
something's
need to
changing.
Stop soon.
Yeah.
It's about to turn red.
Yeah.
We're telling you way back here.
Yeah.
So kind of segueing on the same line of thought here with stop signs, school buses, they have stop signs on them. So in terms of what that means to everyone involved in the situation, traffic around as well as the occupants of the school bus. Let's talk about that.
Okay. Same thing as a stop sign. In this case, it's a always stop. All the lanes around a school bus need to stop once the stop sign comes out on the school bus. School bus actually has yellow flashers that caution you that, hey, I'm getting ready to stop and unload passengers. And then once he stops, it'll turn, or he or she stops, it'll turn red. And then the stop sign comes out and starts flashing. And there's also an arm that comes out in the front of the school bus. Now, for the arm, that's not really necessary for the drivers that are around the school bus, but that's for the passengers of the school bus. But first, with the drivers around the school bus, when a school bus initiates its stop, you need to stop. Okay, you don't pass it. If you're coming up behind it, you don't go around on the right side. You don't go around on the left side. It is an always stop. Coming toward the bus, you need to stop as well. Just recently, there was a close call in Kanawha County in West Virginia where there was a child that was almost hit because somebody was not paying attention and went right by the school bus. And unfortunately, this has become a real issue. And we do believe that maybe distracted driving has something to do with that. But also education is a big key factor. If you're on a divided highway, depending on what your state law says, sometimes divided highways, it's anybody on this side of the highway has to stop. Everybody on that side's good to go. But in some cases, a divided highway, depending on what your state legislature says, is permissible for everybody to stop, even on the other side. So in that case, we could, have all lanes. I mean, every lane stopped.
Right.
2 lanes on this side, 2 lanes on this side. You've got that. And, educate yourself as a driver on whether or not that's permissible in your state. I know recently state laws have been kind of adopted and changed to help make things safer for the students, for children getting on and off school buses, because that could be a real big issue.
So I think, that this has been an incredibly hot topic issue in the local news for the past couple of years now, with the cameras that are in the buses and showing a variety of vehicles passing when it's all signs stop. Red, flashing lights, the stop sign, the arm, the whole works. When the lights are strobing yellow, we've talked about yellow with traffic lights and everything else. What does that mean for a driver approaching or following a bus when the lights are yellow? You said that it indicates that they're preparing to come to a stop, but if you're opposing traffic, is it still legal to pass by the bus while the lights are yellow? Or should you just go ahead and prepare to stop?
While the lights are yellow, if you can safely stop, you need to start stopping. And kind of a start stopping.
Yeah.
Slow it down and get ready because
Okay.
he's going to change to red here soon. Unfortunately, you may run into where you're on this side of the school bus and he actually initiates the yellow and you can't see the yellow because it's on the front and the back of the school bus. In that case, you would be permissible to go by him
Get on by,
because you don't even see the yellow. It's in the front or the back of the bus and you're driving down right next to him. But if you're in oncoming or coming up behind and you see it and you can safely stop, you need to stop. Especially when it turns red, because by that time he's already got his door open and he's starting to let students off. And at the beginning of each school year, students are instructed on how to properly get on and off school buses, how to maintain safety inside the school bus, and bus drivers practice this religiously. And students are probably more safe in school buses than they are in a vehicle. There's more impact to absorb in a school bus. So, school buses remain equally as safe. But once the child gets out, the child has been given directions. If they need to cross the street, then they need to walk a certain feet in front of the bus so the bus driver can see them in his window, and that's what that arm is for. They have to walk out that length, and then he will look in all directions to make sure it's safe, and then he will wave for them to cross. In a lot of cases, bus drivers have been actually pulling into both lanes of the roadway and blocking all lanes of traffic to allow the students to cross safely. And unfortunately, that's just something that they've had to do because they don't trust the other drivers around them to stop, and they'll do what they can to keep the children safe.
Right.
And so that's happened, or it's also happened where bus drivers will have stopped letting children cross the road in front of them, and then they go down the roadway, and then on the way back they drop all the kids off on their way back out of that roadway. So it's maybe extended the time that students have to be dropped off, but it's potentially saving their lives because you just can't tell anymore.
I can imagine on, in particular, some secondary roads, which there are a lot of those around here that are very rural and curvy with tons of blind spots, that, it's got to be safety first for the kids. So that's good strategies, I think. Well, Beau, thank you today for joining us to discuss these topics: red lights, stop signs, and bus safety. As always, we appreciate you coming by to talk with us. So with Armstrong, I'm Shane Finster. Make it a great day.